All I have to say before we continue is thank the creator for YouTube allowing videos longer than 15 minutes. I would be up shit creek without a paddle. That would be way too much editing and just way too much effort on my part. You know? Alright, so I said in the last video that I would take a longer hiatus from The Shining, but I said, you know what? People are way too slow for my taste and they're having a hard time catching up. So I'm just going to continue. And they'll have more to catch up on because they're lazy. That's right, I'm looking at you. So in this chapter, I'm just going to give you a little premise here. Jack goes down to the basement and starts reading through the Overlook's backstory. So if you don't care about any of that, you don't care about what's happened in this hotel, only care about what's currently happening to the Torrances, then you can skip this chapter and I'll let you know. Chapter 18, The Scrapbook. Why would anyone skip a chapter of a book that they haven't read? Seriously. It's some pretty interesting stuff. Or I think so. Jack found the scrapbook on the 1st of November while his wife and son were hiking up the rutted old road. I can never say that. I've done this 3 times and I can't say that. That ran from behind the rope court to a deserted sawmill 2 miles further up. The fine weather still held, and all 3 of them had acquired improbable autumn suntans. He had gone down into the basement to knock the press down on the boiler, and then, on impulse, he had taken the flashlight from the shelf where the plumbing schematics were, and decided to look at some old papers. He was also looking for good places to set his traps, although he didn't plan to do that for another month. I want them all to be home from vacation, he had told Wendy. Oh, he's so funny. He wants the mice to be home from vacation so when he kills them, they can be home with their families. Dun dun dun! Shining the flashlight ahead of him, he stepped past the elevator shaft. At Wendy's insistence, they hadn't used the elevator since they moved in, and through the small stone arch. His nose wrinkled at the smell of rotting paper. Behind him, the boiler kicked on with a thundering whoosh, making him jump. I'm very jumpy. I would probably jump at a rat. Just saying. He flickered the light around, whistling tunelessly between his teeth. There was a scale model Andes range down here. On days? I don't know. It's high up there on the list for me. Dozens of boxes and crates filled with papers, most of them white and shapeless with age and damp. Others had broken open and spilled yellowed sheaves of paper onto the stone floor. There were bales of newspaper tied up with hay rope. Some boxes contained what looked like ledgers, and others contained invoices bound with rubber bands. Jack pulled one out and put the flashlight beam on it. Rocky Mountain Express Inc. 2 Overlook Hotel. Hotel. My accent's coming out. What y'all doing up there? From Sidey's Warehouse, 1210 16th Street, Denver, Colorado, or 1210. Via Canadian Pacific Railroad. Contents: 400 cases shit. 400 cases Delsey toilet tissue, one gross/case. Signed DEF Date August 24th, 1954. Very interesting. We have some toilet paper and a receipt for it. Fantastic. Alright. Basically, it kind of goes over what Ullman said at the beginning, but it talks about some of the things he didn't mention. Um, so you might want to pay attention. I know it'll be hard because I'm having trouble paying attention, but we need to pay attention here. Smiling, Jack let the paper drop back in the box, into the box. He flashed the light above it, and it speared a hanging light bulb, almost buried in cobwebs. There was no chain pull. You pull a little chain, turns on. He stood on tiptoe and tried screwing the bulb in. It lit weakly. He put up the toilet paper. He picked up the toilet paper invoice again and used it to wipe off some of the cobwebs. He's wiping the cobweb with the toilet paper invoice. the the glow didn't brighten much. Still using the flashlight, he wandered through the boxes and bales of paper looking for rat spoor. They had been here, but not for quite a long time. Maybe years. He found some droppings that were powdery with age, and several nests of neatly shredded paper that were old and unused. Jack pulled a newspaper from one of the bundles and glanced down at the headline. Johnson promises orderly transition. Says work begun by JFK will go forward in coming year. Says work begun by JFK will go forward in coming year. Okay. The paper was the Rocky Mountain News, dated this. Fuck me. Preferably in the front. You know. Well, no, you'd have to. Never mind. Yeah, yeah. Take me by the front if you're gonna take. I'd like to see your face. The paper was the Rocky Mountain News, dated December 19th, 1963. I'm gonna change to the TV right quick. Hold on. Tired of this Nick crap being on my TV. I'm in my living room, by the way. Nobody's home, so I've got free reign. I'm a dog. Rocky Mountain. I forgot what it was. Alright, it's alright. The paper was. Yeah, fuck. I'm getting caught up. I'm sorry. The paper was the Rocky Mountain News, dated December 19th, 1963. He dropped it back into the pile. He supposed he was fascinated by that commonplace sense of history that anyone can feel glancing through the fresh news of 10 or 20 years ago. He found gaps in the piled newspapers and records. Nothing from 1937 and 1945. Nope. Hold on, let me mute it right quick. Ouch. The book closed on my finger. One phone's still ringing, but it's okay. Bill collectors and such. Yeah, I might as well interrupt myself. Everybody else is going to. Nothing from 1937 to 1945. From 1957 to 1960. From 1962 to 63. Periods where the hotel had been closed, he guessed. Where it had been between suckers grabbing for the brass ring. Ullman's explanations of the Overlook's checkered career still didn't ring quite true to him. Still didn't ring quite true to him. It seemed that the Overlook's spectacular location alone should have guaranteed its continuing success. There had always been an American jet set, even before jets were invented. And it seemed to Jack that the Overlook should have been one of the bases they touched in their migrations. I put the God. Every time I type, that cup jiggles because I've got it on a paper plate. It even sounded right. The Waldorf in May, the Bar Harbor House in June and July, the Overlook in August and early September, before moving on to Bermuda. Havana, Rio, wherever. He found a pile of old desk registers and they bore him out. Nelson Rockefeller in 1950, Henry Ford and Family in 1927, Jean Harlow in 1930, Clark Gable and Carol Lombard. Okay. In 1956, the whole top floor had been taken for a week by Daryl F. Zanuck and party. The money must have been rolled down the corridors and into the cash registers like a 20th century Comstock load. Mm, he said load. Lode, load. The management must have been spectacularly bad. There was history here, all right, and not just in newspaper headlines. It was buried between the entries in these ledgers and account books and room service chits where you couldn't quite see it. In 1922, Warren G. Harding, a president, I believe, had ordered a whole salmon at 10 o'clock in the evening and a case of Coors beer. But whom had he been eating and drinking with? Had it been a poker game, a strategy session, what? I don't know. Are you gonna tell me, or are you just gonna leave that open-ended? Jack glanced at his watch and was surprised to see that 45 minutes had somehow slipped by since he had come down here. His hands were his hands and arms were grimy, and he probably smelled bad. He decided to go up and take a shower before Wendy and Danny got back. He walked slowly between the mountains of paper, his mind alive and ticking over possibilities in a speedy way that was exhilarating. He hadn't felt this way in years. It suddenly seemed that the book he had semi-jokingly promised himself might really happen. It may even be right here, buried in these untiny heaps of paper. It could be a work of fiction, or history, or both. A long book exploding out of this central place in 100 directions. He's a writer. He's always coming up with book ideas. And I'm a writer, but I never had these many ideas. Maybe I'm not inspired enough to do them. Maybe because I'm just a superhero nerd. I'm a comic book nerd. I just want to do superhero stories. Because all my originals suck. A pile of 5 boxes stood on his left like some tottering Pisa. The one on top was stuffed with more invoices and ledgers. Balanced on top of those, keeping its angle of repose for those who knew how many years, was a thick scrapbook with white leather covers, its pages bound with 2 hanks of gold string that had been tied along its binding in gaudy bows. Curious, he went over and took it down. The top cover was thick with dust. He held it on a plane at lip level, blew the dust off in a cloud, and opened it. And this is very important. I'm reading ahead. I'm sorry. This is very important. As he did so, a card fluttered out and he grabbed it in midair before it could fall to the stone floor. It was rich and creamy, dominated by a raised engraving of the overlook with every window alight. The lawn and playground were decorated with glowing Japanese lanterns. It looked almost as though you could step right into it, an overlook hotel that existed 30 years ago. Horace M. Derwent Horace M. Derwent requests the pleasure of your company at a mass ball to celebrate the grand opening of the Overlook Hotel. Dinner will be served at 8 p.m. Unmasking and dancing at midnight, August 29th, 1945. And down below it says RSVP. It's like an invitation to a party. Okay. Dinner at 8, unmasking at midnight. He could almost see them in the dining room, the richest men in America and their women. Tuxedos and glimmering starched shirts, evening gowns, the band playing, gleaming high-heeled pumps, the clink of glasses, the jocund pop of campaign corks. The war was over, or almost over. The future lay ahead, clean and shining. America was the colossus of the world, and at last she knew it and accepted it. America! Alright, enough with the trend. And later, at midnight, Derwent himself crying, "Unmask! Unmask!" The mask coming off, and the Red Death held sway over all. He frowned. What left field had that come out of? That was Poe, the great American hack. And surely the Overlook, this shining, glowing Overlook on the invitation he held in his hands, was the farthest cry from E.A. Poe imaginable. So he calls him the great American hack. You don't know who Poe is, he wrote The Raven and The Mask of the Red Death. The Raven they actually made a movie out of, I believe, last year with John Cusack. He wrote horror stories, or horror poems, I'm sorry, he's a poet. And one of my favorites from him was The Raven and something called The Black Cat. But enough about me, let's get back to the story. Jack Torrance is obviously not a big fan of Edgar Allan Poe, like I'm not a big fan of Emily Dickinson. Anyway, and the thing about Stephen King that I really can't differentiate here, he'll have the story and then he'll cut away with a thought or a flashback or something, and I can't really let you know when it's changed. So you'll just have to kind of imagine it. Okay? There's not really I can't just stop and say, "Oh, this is a thought." It kind of ruins it, you know. But I ruin it all the time like I'm doing now. So I might just do that. And sometimes I forget and you'll just have to go along with it. And you'll do it and you'll like it. You'll like it a lot and you'll scream. Because I like to hear you scream. I'm a screamer. time to shut the fuck up. Alright, where was I? He put the invitation back and turned to the next page. A pay stub from one of the Denver papers and scratched beneath it the date. May 15th, 1947. So it's been open. It's been open for about 2 years now, almost 2 years. Hold on. The book is crushing my finger, but I don't care. Posh Mountain Resort. Shit. Posh Mountain Resort reopens with stellar guest register. Derwent says Overlook will be showplace of the world. By David Felton, features editor. The Overlook Hotel has been opened and reopened in its 38-year history. What? Well, I got that wrong. It deserved it. I'm getting comments from my last video and I'm having to reply. I don't have to reply, but it's fun to reply while I'm reading. So it's been open for 38 years. I must have read that wrong. Oh, they were having the party a year ago. Okay. Now I feel stupid for getting that wrong. And now I should laugh at myself because I was stupid. So haha. Alright. Does that make you feel better? That's different. Alright. This is a news article he's reading. 30 it's been closed and reopened in its 38-year history, but rarely with such style and dash as that promised by Horace Derwent, the mysterious California millionaire who is the latest owner of this hostelry. What? It's a new word. Actually, it shouldn't be a new word. I've read this book I don't know how many times. Derwent, who makes no secret of having sunk more than $1 million into his newest venture, and some say the figure is closer to $3 million, says that the new Overlook will be one of the world's showplaces, the kind of hotel you will remember overnighting in 30 years later. When Derwent, who is rumored to have substantial Las Vegas holdings, was asked if his purchase and refurbishing of the Overlook signaled the opening gun in a battle to legalize casino-style gambling in Colorado, the aircraft movie, munitions, and shipping magnate denied it with a smile. The Overlook would be cheapened by gambling, he said. And don't think I'm knocking Vegas. They got too many of my markers out there for me to be doing that. For me to do that. I have no interest in lobbying for legalized gambling in Colorado. It would be spitting into the wind. When the Overlook opens officially, there was a gigantic and hugely successful party there some time ago when the actual work was finished. The newly painted, papered, and decorated rooms will be occupied by a stellar guest list, ranging from chic designer Corbastani to... Smiling bemusedly, Jack turned the page. It's like, I don't care, turn the page. Now he was looking at a full-page ad from the New York Sunday Times travel section. Yeah, but, well, I'll get to that in a minute. I'll get to that when we get there. On the page after that, a story on Derwent himself, a balding man with eyes that pierced you, even from an old new-style newsprint photo. Mm. That pierced you even from an old newsprint photo. I don't mind at all. As long as you guys don't mind, I don't mind being interrupted. Unless somebody's calling on the phone or something, or being loud and obnoxious and interrupting me. This kind of thing, like getting messages while I'm reading, that doesn't bother me. Okay. I'm gonna read this same line 500 times before I get past it. A balding man with eyes that pierced you even from an old newsprint photo. He was wearing rimless spectacles and a 40s style pinline mustache that did nothing at all to make him look like Errol Flynn. His face was that of an accountant. It was the eyes that made him look like someone or something else. I have no idea why I'm wearing these at all, but my ear is itching. Even a baby can tell you everybody poops. You know you can't make poop jokes on TV. The FCC like shuts you down. It's the man shutting you down. You can't make poop jokes. It's like the FCC's main concern, yet we can talk about rape and murder and all that. It's priorities straight, man. Anyway. Oh, alright. Jack skimmed the article rapidly. He knew most of the information from a Newsweek story underwent the year before. Born poor in St. Paul, never finished high school, joined the Navy instead. Rose rapidly, then left in a bit of wrangle over the patent on a new type of propeller that he had designed. In the tug of war between the Navy and an unknown young man named Horace DeWint, Uncle Sam came off the predictable winner. But Uncle Sam had never gotten another patent, and there had been a lot of them. In the late 20s and early 30s, DeWint turned to aviation. He bought out a bankrupt crop dusting company, turned it into a small airmail service, and prospered. More patents followed. A new monoplane wing design, a bomb carriage used on the flying fortresses that had rained fire on Hamburg and Dresden and Berlin, a machine gun that was cooled by alcohol, a prototype of the ejection seat later used in United States jets. They teach you diction in acting class, and it's just not working out. Suck it in, support it. Alright. Yeah, when you do characters, the characters I do have no diction whatsoever. So, and along the line, the accountant who lived in the same skin as the inventor, kept piling up the investments. A piddling string of munition factories in New York and New Jersey. Jesus, it's boring. When do we get to the good stuff? Here we go, next page. Alright, we get to the good stuff in the next page. Just bear with me. A piddling string of munition factories in New York and New Jersey, 5 textile mills in New England, chemical factories in the bankrupt and groaning South. At the end of the Depression, his wealth had been nothing but a handful of controlling interest, bought at abysmally low prices, salably only at lower prices still. At one point, Derwent boasted that he could liquidate completely and realized the price of a 3-year-old Chevrolet. There have been rumors, Jack recalled, that some of the means employed by Derwent to keep his head above water were less than savory. Involvement with bootlegging, prostitution in the Midwest, smuggling in the coastal areas of the South, where his fertilizer factories were, finally in association with the nascent Western gambling interests. Ah, alright. Probably Derwent's most famous investment was the purchase of the foundering Top Mark Studios, which had not had a hit since their child star, little Marjorie Morris, had died of a heroin overdose in 1934. It's a regular Drew Barrymore. She's Aww. Hold on, it's important. Hello? Hey, Granddaddy. She went to go get the kids and take them to an appointment. She's got her phone. Alright. Love you too. Alright. Bye. Alright, where else do you see that in a read through, right? I'm like the only guy that doesn't edit out things like that. Yeah, you can know my business. It's not that important. So their child star at the studio that he bought had a heroin overdose. I was making the reference of Drew Barrymore when Drew Barrymore was a child star when she played in E.T. and Firestarter. She was an alcoholic at the time. So little tidbit of information there. She's doing fine now. She's great now, actually. She was 14. Little Marjorie, who had specialized in sweet 7-year-olds who saved marriages and the lives of dogs unjustly accused of killing chickens, had been given the biggest Hollywood funeral in history by Top Mark. The official story was that little Marjorie had contracted a wasting disease while entertaining at a New York orphanage, and some cynics suggested the studio had laid out all that long green because it knew it was burying itself. So they paid somebody off to say that is what they're saying. Derwent hired a keen businessman and raging sex maniac named Henry Finkel to run Top Mark, and in the 2 years before Pearl Harbor, the studio ground out 60 movies, 55 of which glided right into the face of the Hays office and spit on its large blue nose. The other 5 were government training films. It's gonna take me forever to get through this chapter because it's a decent sized chapter. They could just condense all this, but he wants us to read it all. It picks up after this, so if you're not interested, the next chapter we'll never have another chapter like this. Derwent hired, I already read that. Large blue nose, which glided right into the face of the Hays office and spit on its large blue nose. The other 5 were government training films. The feature films were huge successes. During one of them, an unnamed costume designer had jury-rigged a strapless bra for the heroine to appear in during the grand ball scene, where she had revealed everything except possibly the birthmark just below the cleft of her buttocks. Yeah. Sorry, I was channeling all the men, all the fraternity boys. Derwent received credit for this invention as well, and his reputation or notoriety grew. That was emphasized. It was like his reputation dash or notoriety dash grew. It's like abruptly stop what you're doing. Notoriety grew. The war had made him rich, and he was still rich. Living in Chicago, seldom seen except for Derwent Enterprises board meetings, which he ran with an iron hand, it was rumored that he owned United Airlines Las Vegas, where he was known to have controlling interest in 4 hotel casinos and some involvement in at least 6 others. Los Angeles and the USA itself, where he owned United Airlines Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and the USA itself. It gets kind of confusing the way he does his paragraphs, where you're like, okay, it's picking up, but what was it talking about before? Reputed to be a friend of royalty presidents and underworld kingpins, it was supposed by many that he was the richest man in the world. But he had not been able to make it go the overlook, Jack thought. He put the scrapbook down for a moment and took the small notebook and mechanical pen he always kept with him out of his breast pocket. He jotted, "Look into H. Derwent Sidewinder Library." He put the notebook back and picked up the scrapbook again. His face was preoccupied, his eyes distant. He wiped his mouth constantly with his hand as he turned the pages. Once again, his drinking habits are coming back. He's wiping his mouth like he did. He chewed. No, we haven't got to that yet. Oops, almost spoiled it. I was trying to remember where that came in. I'm pretty far off, actually. That doesn't come till later on. He's wiping his mouth a lot. All right. With his hand as he turned the pages. He skimmed the material that followed, making a mental note to read it more closely later. Press releases were pasted into many of the pages. So and so was expected at the Overlook next week. Thus and such would be entertaining in the lounge. In Derwent's time, it had been the Red Eye Lounge. Many of the entertainers were Vegas names, and many of the guests were top mark executives and stars. So he's trying not to bore us to death with this backstory, but is it really helping? Then, in a clipping marked February 1st, 1952, millionaire executive to sell Colorado investments. Deal made with California investors on Overlook. Other investments, Derwent reveals, by Rodney Conklin, financial editor. In a terse communique yesterday from the Chicago offices of the monolithic Derwent ah from the Chicago offices of the monolithic Derwent Enterprises, it was revealed that millionaire, perhaps billionaire, Horace Derwent has sold out of Colorado in a stunning financial power play that will be completed by October 1st, 1954. So 2 years, almost 3 years. Derwent's investments include natural gas, coal, hydroelectric power, and a land development company called Colorado Sunshine Inc., which owns or holds options on better than 500,000 acres of Colorado land. The most famous Derwent holding in Colorado, the Overlook Hotel, has already been sold. Derwent revealed in a rare interview yesterday. That bizarre way of talking. The buyer was a California group of investors headed by Charles Grodin, a former director of the California Land Development Corporation. While Derwent refused to discuss price, informed sources, he had, he had sold out everything, lock, stock, and barrel. It wasn't just the Overlook, but somehow, he wiped his lips with his hand and wished he had a drink. This would go better with a drink. He turned more pages. I'm assuming it would, but I wouldn't know. I don't drink. But I'm assuming it would. This is kind of slow and painful. Like, I don't know. Like a, uh, I'll come up with something and it'll pop up. He turned more pages. The California group had opened the hotel for 2 seasons and then sold it to a Colorado group called Mountain View Resorts. Mountain View went bankrupt in 1957 amid charges of corruption, nest feathering, and cheating the stockholders. The president of the company shot himself, wow, 2 days after being subpoenaed to appear before a grand jury. The hotel had been closed for the rest of the decade. There was a single story about it. A Sunday feature headlined Former Grand Hotel Sinking into Decay. The accompanying photos wrenched at Jack's heart. The paint on the front porch peeling, the lawn a bald and scabrous mess, windows broken by storms and stones. This will be a part of the book, if he actually wrote it too. The phoenix going down into ashes to be reborn. He's using that one a lot, or it's being used a lot. He promised himself he would take care of the place. Very good care. It seemed that before today he had never really understood the breadth of his responsibility to the Overlook. It was almost like having a responsibility to history. In 1964, four writers, two of the Pulitzer Prize winners, had leased the Overlook and reopened it as a writer's school. Really? And I can't position this book the way I like it. I like it like that. The horrible scene. That had lasted 1 year. One of the students had gotten drunk in his third floor room, crashed out of the window somehow, and fell to his death on the cement terrace below. That's why I don't drink. I'm clumsy enough as it is. Drugs are bad, okay? Fuck it. I'm trying to position the book. The paper hinted that it might have been a suicide. So we got some deaths here in the hotel. Any big hotels have had a scandal, Watson had said. Just like every big hotel has got a ghost. Why? Hell, people come and go. Suddenly, it seemed that he could almost feel the weight of the Overlook bearing down on him from above. 110 guest rooms, the storage rooms, kitchen, pantry, freezer, lounge, ballroom, dining room. It's all too much. In the room, the women come and go. Ain't that the truth? Amen, brother, yeah. And the Red Death held sway over all. And why is the Red Death popping? Why is the mask of the Red Death popping up? Why? Well, I know the significance, but what significance does this hold to the story? Will we see some sort of reference, or we're already seeing references, but will something come of this? I don't know, but I want to find out. Actually, I know what's going to happen, but you want to find out. I know you want to find out. So let's keep reading. We have to get past this because this is boring the hell out of me. That's why I keep interrupting myself, because it's boring the hell out of me. And there's an ant on my foot, and I have to scratch it or get it off or something. So I'm gonna use the book, and I'm gonna beat the hell out of it. There we go. That's how you do it. Oh, all right. And now I lost my page. So was it really the smartest move to use my book? Probably not, but we're so close to. No, we're not. We've got like 4 more pages of this. Jesus Christ. He rubbed his lips and turned to the next page in the scrapbook. He was in the last third of it now. And for the first time he wondered consciously whose book this was, left atop the highest pile of records in the cellar. Yeah, whose fucking book is this? Like, they're very meticulous with uh their organizing. Like, they've got every single piece of like newspaper clippings and things of the Overlook. So, kudos to whoever found all this stuff and put it all in one convenient scrapbook. A new headline, this one dated April 10th, 1963. Las Vegas Group buys famed Colorado hotel, Scenic Overlook to become key club. Robert T. Leffing, spokesman for a group of investors going under the name of High Country Investments, announced today in Las Vegas that High Country has negotiated a deal for the famous Overlook Hotel, a resort located high in the Rockies. Leffing declined to mention the names of specific investors, but said the hotel would be turned into an exclusive key club. He said that the group he represents hopes to sell memberships to high echelon executives in America and foreign companies. High Country also owns hotels in Montana, Wyoming, and Utah. Sorry. Alright. Sorry. That was very unprofessional. The Overlook became world known in the years 1946 to 1952, when it was owned by elusive megamillionaire Horace Derwent, who, the item on the next page was a mere squib, dated 4 months later. The Overlook had opened up under its new management. Apparently, the paper hadn't been able to find out or wasn't interested in who the key holders were, because no name was mentioned but High Club Investments, the most anonymous sounding company name Jack had ever heard, except for a chain of bike and appliance shops in western New England that went under the name of Business Incorporated. By the way, he's from New England, and they had Jack Nicholson play him in the movie. Really? Come on, now. Come on now. Should have had Seth MacFarlane play him in the movie. Ah, Jesus. Yeah. Peter Griffin or whatever play him in the movie. Um, I'm just imagining Peter Griffin doing an axe murder thing, or sorry, doing the Shining thing. I just gave away the son of a bitch. I just gave away the story. Pay no attention. Pay no attention to what I just said. I just kind of ruined it for you. I'm just imagining Peter Griffin in this story. Like Jack Nicholson's got this definite laugh, and so does Peter, but it's like two different sides of the spectrum. Just imagine Peter Griffin, any kind of intelligent writer. First of all, yeah, have fun with that thought. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, he turned the page and blinked down at the clipping pasted there. Millionaire DeWint back in Colorado via back door. Back door. I do. High Country exec revealed to be Charles Grodlin. Oh, so Horace DeWint is Charles Grodlin. If you remember, Charles Grodlin bought or was sold the Overlook. So that's kind of interesting, I guess. By Rodney Conklin, again, financial editor. The Overlook Hotel, it's a a scenic pleasure palace in the Colorado high country, and once again the private plaything of millionaire Horace DeWint, is at the center of a financial tangle which is only now beginning to come to light. On April 10th of last year, the hotel was purchased by a Las Vegas firm, High Country Investments, as a key club for wealthy executives of both foreign and domestic breeds. Now informed sources say that High Country is headed by Charles Grodlin, sorry, Grodin, not Grodlin, I was reading it wrong, 53, who was the head of California Land Development Corp until 1959, when he resigned to take the position of executive VP in the Chicago home offices of Derwent Enterprises. This had led to speculation that High Country Investments may be controlled by Derwent, who may have acquired the Overlook for the second time and under decidedly peculiar circumstances. Grodin, who was indicted and acquitted on charges of tax evasion in 1960, could not be reached for comment. I just want to point out that they caught Al Capone on tax evasion after he had murdered several people. They caught him on tax evasion, and he ended up serving a life sentence in prison, if I'm not mistaken. It, when you hear people, getting caught on tax evasion, you think, well, that's not, that bad. But in Al Capone's case, yeah, it was. Just wanted to point that out. A little fun fact for you history people or you gangster people. Um, and Horace DeWint, who guards his own privacy jealously, had no comment when reached by telephone. State Representative Dick Bowes of Golden has called for a complete investigation into. And Jack, he's got my attention span. He just skips ahead. When it bores him, he just skips ahead. The clipping was dated July 27, 1964. The next column, the next was a column from a Sunday paper that September. The byline belonged to Josh Braniger, B-A-A-B-R-A, I gotta find it now, N-N-I-G-A-R, Braniger, a muckraking investor of the Jack Anderson breed. Jack vaguely recalled that Branniger had died in 1968 or 69. Mafia Free Zone in Colorado by Josh Branniger. It now seems possible that the new R&R spot of organization overlords in the U.S. is located at an out-of-the-way hotel nestled in the center of the Rockies. The Overlook Hotel, a white elephant that has been run I'm Asian now, lucklessly by almost a dozen different groups and individuals since it first opened its doors in 1910, is now being operated as a security jacketed key club. I know the word, I just can't pronounce it. See, we're learning words together. Ostensibly, no. Ostensibly. It means seemingly. Ostensibly for unwinding businessmen. The question is, what business are the Overlook's key holders really in? The porn business, of course. Jeez. I mean, how hard is that? I can sum up a whole chapter with they were in the porn business. They weren't in the porn business. But it would be a much more interesting chapter if they were. The members present during the week of August 16th through 23rd may give us an idea. The list below was obtained by a former employee of High Country Investments. Jesus Christ, there's a list. A company first believed to be a dummy company owned by Derwent Enterprises. It now seems more likely that Derwent's interest in High Country, if any, is outweighed by those of several Las Vegas gambling barons. And these same gaming honchos have been linked in the past to both suspected and convicted underworld kingpins. Present at the Overlook during that sunny week in August were Charles Grodin, president of the High Country Investments. When it became known in July of this year that he was running the High Country ship, it was announced, considerably after the fact, that he had resigned his position in Derwent Enterprises previously. The still-remained Grodin, who refused to talk to me for this column, has been tried once and acquitted on tax evasion charges in 1960. Charles Baby Charlie Battaglia, a 60-year-old Vegas impresario. Wow, you can really tell I'm from the South because I'm like, impresario, you know, controlling interest in the greenback and the lucky bones on the strip. Battaglia is a close personal friend of Grodin. His arrest record stretches back to 1932, when he was tried and acquitted in the gangland-style murder of Jack Dutchy Morgan. Federal authorities suspect his involvement in the drug traffic, prostitution, and murder for hire, but Baby Charlie has only been behind bars once, for income tax in 1955 through 1956. It's a long list, man. It wouldn't be so bad if the descriptions weren't so long. Richard Scarn, the principal stockholder of Funtime Automatic Machines. That's like, you know, vibrators and such. I'm going to hell. Let's just accept that fact now. I'm going to hell. Funtime makes slot machines. I have to make this interesting somehow. Funtime makes slots machines for the Nevada crowd, pinball machines, and jukeboxes, Melody Coin, for the rest of the country. He has done time for assault with a deadly weapon in 1940, carrying a concealed weapon 1948, and conspiracy to commit tax fraud in 1961. Peter Zez, a Miami-based importer now nearing 70. For the last 5 years, Zez has been fighting deportation as an undesirable person. He's been convicted on charges of receiving and concealing stolen property in 1958, and conspiracy to commit tax fraud in 1954. Charming, distinguished, and courtly, Pete Zest is called Papa by his um, I know the word, I'm just having a hard time reading today. Intimates, and has been tried on charges of murder and accessory to murder. A large stockholder in Scarnes Funtime Company, he also has known interest in 4 Las Vegas casinos. I bet they call him Papa. That's what I'm talking about. Hell yeah. Vittorio Ganelli, I'm assuming that's how you say it. I'm Italian and I don't know half these names. Also known as Vito the Chopper, tried twice for gangland style murders. One of them the axe murder of Boston Vice Overlord. Sorry, that's a big difference. Frank Scoffey. Ganelli has been indicted 23 times, tried 14 times, and convicted only once for shoplifting in 1940. I'm going back to Al Capone here. He's killed how many people? Twice. He gets convicted for shoplifting. Really? It has been said that in recent years, Ganelli has become a power in the organization's Western operation, which is centered in Las Vegas. We got one more motherfucker. Carl Jimmy Ricks Prashkin, Jimmy Ricks, come on. I can't speak now. A San Francisco investor reputed to be the heir apparent of the power Ganelli now wields. Prashkin owns large blocks of stock in Derwent Enterprises, High Country Investments, Funtime Automatic Machines, and 3 Vegas casinos. Prashkin is clean in America, but was indicted in Mexico on fraud charges that were dropped quickly 3 weeks after they were brought. It has been suggested that Prashkin may be in charge of laundering money skimmed from Vegas casino operations and funneling the big bucks back into the organization's legitimate Western operations. And such operations may now include the Overlook Hotel in Colorado. Other visitors during the current season include: there were more, but Jack only skimmed it, constantly wiping his lips with his hand. A banker with Las Vegas connections, men from New York who were apparently doing more in the garment district than making clothes, men reputed to be involved with drug, vice, robbery, murder. God, what a story! And they'd all been here right above them in those empty rooms, screwing expensive whores on the 3rd floor maybe, drinking magnums of champagne, making deals that would turn over millions of dollars, maybe in the very suite of the rooms where the presidents had stayed. There was a story, all right, one hell of a story. A little frantically, he took out his notebook and jotted down another memo to check all these people out at the library in Denver when the caretaking job was over. Every hotel had its ghost. The Overlook had a whole coven of them. First suicide, then the mafia, then what? The next clipping was an angry denial of Brenniger's charges by Charles Grodin. This is extremely boring and therefore hard to read. I find it boring. You may not find it boring, so I apologize. But these lists, and let me explain something to you. When he writes in an article, it's small print and sized together like an actual newspaper article. So forgive me if I stumble over my words. Jack smirked at it. The clipping on the next page was so large that it had been folded. Jack unfolded it and gasped. Gasped with a P. Harshly. The picture there seemed to leap out at him. The wallpaper had been changed since June of 1966, but he knew that window and the view perfectly well. It was the western exposure of the presidential suite. Murder came next. Murder! That's right, murder. All right, let's hear about the murder, shall we? Murder. All right. The sitting room wall by the door leading into the bedroom was splashed with blood and what could only be white flecks of brain matter. Uh-oh. Going back to what Danny saw in the hotel, he saw those white flecks on the blood. And on the blood on the walls, he saw that. He saw that. So he's seeing what's happened like Halloran said he would. Alright, we're getting somewhere. It's picking up. Murder. A blank-faced cop was standing over a corpse hidden by a blanket. Jack stared, fascinated, and then his eyes moved up to the headline. It's always the picture first, then the headline in the article. Gangland-style shooting at Colorado hotel. Reported crime lord shot at Mountain Key Club. 2 others dead. Sidewinder, Colorado, UPI. 40 miles from this sleepy Colorado town, a gangland-style execution has occurred in the heart of the Rocky Mountains. The Overlook Hotel, purchased 3 years ago as an exclusive key club by a Las Vegas firm, was the site of a triple shotgun slaying. 2 of the 3 men were either the companions or bodyguards of Victor Ganelli, also known as the Chopper, for his reputed involvement in a Boston slaying 20 years ago. Police were summoned by Robert Norman, manager of the Overlook, who said he heard shots and that some of the guests reported 2 men wearing stockings on their faces and carrying guns had fled down the fire escape and driven off in a late model tan convertible. Oh God. State Trooper Benjamin Moore discovered 2 dead men, later identified as Victor T. Borman and Roger McCasey, both of Las Vegas, outside the door of the presidential suite, where 2 American presidents have stayed. Inside, Moore found the body of Ganelli sprawled on the floor. Ganelli was apparently fleeing from his attackers when he was cut down. Moore said Ganelli had been shot with heavy-gauge shotguns at close range. Charles Grodin, the representative of the company, which now owns the Overlook, could not be reached for ... Below the clipping, in heavy strokes of a ballpoint pen, someone had written, "They took his balls along with them." Jack stared at that for a long time. Whose book was this? He turned the page at last, swallowing a click in his throat. Another column from Josh Branniger. This one dated early 1967. He only read the headline, "Notorious Hotel Sold Following Murder of Underworld Figure." Why couldn't he just give us the headlines instead of the full fucking articles? Because that's a pain in the ass to read. The sheets following that clipping were blank. They took his balls along with them. He flipped back to the beginning, looking for a name or address, even a room number, because he felt quite sure that whoever kept this little book of memories had stayed at the hotel, but there was nothing. He was getting ready to go through all the clippings more closely this time when a voice called down the stairs, "Jack? Hun? Wendy." He started almost guiltily, as if he had been drinking secretly and she would smell the fumes on him. Ridiculous. He scrubbed his lips with his hand and called back, "Yeah, babe. Looking for rats." She was coming down. He heard her on the stairs, then crossing the boiler room. Quickly, without thinking why he might be doing it, he stuffed the scrapbook under a pile of bills and invoices. He stood up as she came through the archway. "What in the world have you been doing down here? It's almost 3 o'clock." He smiled. "Is it that late? I got rooting around through all this stuff, trying to figure out where the body is buried, I guess." "Ho ho! Good one." The words clanged back viciously in his mind. She came closer, looking at him, and he unconsciously retreated a step, unable to help himself. He knew what she was doing. She was trying to smell liquor on it. Probably she wasn't aware of it herself, but he was, and it made him feel both guilty and angry. "Your mouth is bleeding," she said in a curiously flat tone. "Huh?" He put his hand to his lips and winced at the thin stinging. His index finger came away bloody. His guilt increased. "You've been rubbing your mouth again." "Oh, fucking really?" "I hadn't noticed," she said. I should really finish, say, at least say she said before I start commenting. He looked down and shrugged. "Yeah, I guess I have." "It's been hell for you, hasn't it?" "No, not so bad." "Has it gotten any easier?" He looked up at her and made his feet start moving. Once they were actually in motion, it was easier. He crossed to his wife and slipped an arm around her waist. He brushed aside a sheaf of her blonde hair and kissed her neck. "Yes," he said. "Where's Danny?" "Oh, he's around somewhere." It started to cloud up outside. "Hungry?" He slipped a hand over her taut, jean-clad bottom with counterfeit lechery. "Likes the bear, madame." "Watch out, slugger. Don't start something you can't finish." "Yeah, don't start it when it's going to take off prematurely either." "Oh, fig fig, madame?" he asked, still rubbing. "Dirty pictures? Unnatural positions?" "Dirty pictures and unnatural positions. Yeah." Uh, I'm just picturing Jack Nicholson and Wendy Duvall doing this. Like if Wendy Duvall was a blonde, and I mean, I'm picturing the movie, as it happened in my head, and there was never any kind of foreplay in the movie at all. As they went through the arc, he threw one glance back at the box where the scrapbook, whose, was hidden. With the light out, it was only a shadow. He was relieved that he had gotten Wendy away. His lust became less acted, more natural, as they approached the stairs. "Maybe," she said, "after we get you a sandwich." I don't know what the fuck that was, but it's yeek, Yeek, and it's emphasized. So I'm like, she's jumping at something. She twisted away from him, giggling. "That tickles." And I put no emotion into that for a reason. "It tickles nothing like Jacques Torrance would like to tickle you, madame." "Lay off, Jock. How about a ham and cheese for the first course?" They went up the stairs together, and Jack didn't look over his shoulder again. But he thought of Watson's words. Every big hotel's got a ghost. Why? Hell, people come and go. Then Wendy shut the basement door behind them, closing it into darkness. And finally, I can shut the book. We're done with that fucking chapter. That's one of my least favorite chapters in the book. It only gets better from here on out. We've got the backstory. We've got Danny having his nightmares. We've got Jack doing his little drinking habit thing. The story is set. All they have to do is progress with it. we've got one more thing to do, and that's going to happen in the next chapter. I'll be right back with it. I forgot to. I'll be going for an hour. Fantastic.